Story time on how my boyfriend leaked my nudes to my entire school. You heard that right. So I was 15 at the time in the 9th grade and he was 18 in the 12th grade. He was very popular and well known. Even the teachers liked him. And every girl wanted to be with him or get his attention. It was my first year in high school, so I of course fell for that stupid popular guy thing. He was kind of known for being a player and messing with a lot of girls. And yeah, that's a red flag, but we don't see red flags in high school. Well, he seen me in lunch one day and came over to talk to me. All I could do was blush and feel kind of special because here I have the most popular guy in school giving me attention. We started texting and talking on the phone every night. And I even got a little popular myself. Literally only after a month of us talking, one night he asked me to send him a picture. And that's when I make the biggest mistake of my life. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my boyfriend leaked my nudes to my entire school. So like I said, only after a month of us talking, one night he asked me to send him a picture. Me being innocent minded, I sent him a picture of me fully clothed. Once he got it, he laughed and said, "No, baby, send me something sexy. Show me what you got underneath." My heart immediately dropped. I knew I shouldn't, but he was the popular guy. How could I say no? I trust him, right? He's probably used to this with other girls. I didn't want him to see me as a loser. I just wanted him to like me. Fuck it, I'll do it. I locked my door and took a picture of everything. Yes, everything. Including my cat with my face in it. I sent it and immediately regretted it. There was just something in me that knew I shouldn't, but I just didn't listen to myself. Well, I was right because the very next day was the worst day of my life. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my boyfriend leaked my nudes to my entire school. So like I said, even though I didn't want to do it, I did it and sent him the picture. He told me how beautiful I was and how much he couldn't wait to see me tomorrow. Maybe I was wrong. Well, that wasn't the case because literally the next day, not even a week later, the next day, while I was walking to my classes, people would be staring, laughing, snickering. I immediately knew what happened and my friends came and confirmed it. I tried calling and texting him and he wouldn't respond. He was such an asshole. And if I seen him, he would act like he didn't know me. It became so big, my parents got involved. So grateful for my parents and how they had my back. They moved me to another school and pressed charges. He ended up getting in big trouble with the authorities. And all my pictures was taken down on his socials and anywhere they were. And now I'm in my new school with none of that drama. But if you take anything away from this, ladies, don't do it. Story time on how me and my dad walked into my mom sleeping with my brother. Yes, his and hers biological son. She actually took his virginity away, child. All right, let me set the scene for y'all. I was 18 at the time and my brother was 16. My parents were together, so we lived with both parents. Me and my brother went to the same school, but I was in the girls' basketball team, so I would always stay after school and he would take the bus home. And my mom would be home by the time my brother got home. 3 to 4 hours by the time my basketball practice was over, my dad would be getting off of work, so he would pick me up and we would go home together. So that was basically our routine as a family. But one day this routine changed because I sprained my ankle. I called my dad and he immediately left work to come and get me. My ankle wasn't too bad, but my coach wanted to send me home to be on the safe side to make sure I heal. Well, that night changed me and my dad's lives forever once we opened that door. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how me and my dad walked into my mom sleeping with my brother. So like I said, this day I sprained my ankle, so my dad left his job early and picked me up. And again, my ankle wasn't too bad, but my coach wanted to send me home just so I can heal and not make it worse by putting pressure on it. Regardless, once me and my dad got home, everything changed. Once we walked into the house, we immediately heard, weird sounds. We looked at each other and confirmed that, yeah, that's definitely moaning. My dad immediately thought my mom was cheating, but we just didn't know with who. The moaning was coming from my parents' room, which was just, why? At least have respect for the bed. Anywho, I limped my way over to the door with my dad. My dad opened up the door and my mom was on top of my brother, literally riding that pony. And the war began. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how me and my dad walked into my mom sleeping with my brother. So like I said, my dad opened up the door and my mom was on top of my brother riding that pony. It was disgusting. My jaws dropped. My mom jumped off covering herself and my brother sat up shaking. My dad went off. He went straight for my mom and grabbed her yelling, "What the fuck are you doing in bed with our son?" Not gonna lie, my dad was so angry he put his hands on my mom. My mom fell to the ground crying, saying, "I'm so sorry." Then my dad turned around and beat my brothers behind. My brother ran to the room and I'm just still standing there in shock. I grew a hatred for my mom that day. My dad started yelling at my mom saying how she's taking advantage advantage of their son, how he's a minor, and all she did was cry. All of a sudden, I don't know what came over me, but I called my mom a stupid, dirty whore. And the war continued, like for part 4. Part 4 on how me and my dad walked in on my mom sleeping with my brother. So like I said, my mom was on the floor crying while my dad was yelling at her for taking advantage of their son. And at the time, I hated my mom so much I called her a few less than kind words. And she had the audacity to get up and tell me not to speak to her that way. I then called her the B word, the FB word, and the W word, and it was on. She rushed at me trying to hit me, but I ended up pushing her to the floor. Then she fell to the ground saying, "How could you put your hands on your mother?" And my dad responded, "How could you put that cat on your son?" She walked into that one. Anywho, let's fast forward to the legal things. That same night, my dad called the cops on my mom and they came to our house. And they, of course, arrested my mom. Like for part 5 to find out what was her charges and what happened to my brother. Part 5 on how me and my dad walked in on my mom sleeping with my brother. So like I said, my dad called the cops and they arrested my mom. She's facing over 3 years for statutory R and it's classified as a felony. My brother still lives with my dad and I, but he has to go to therapy almost every day. And that's how we actually found out she took his V card away. Anyways, a year later, I'm still not the biggest fan of my brother, but we're okay. And I still haven't talked to my mom, and I'm happy about that. I just think she's weird and disgusting. Me and my dad are great, and he's happy with the new girl, a regular girl. Story time on how my dad had a threesome with my brother and another man. Okay, so a quick rundown. My parents divorced when I was 13, and just a year after, my dad got with another man. So at the time, I was 14, my brother was 15, my mom was 34, my dad was 36, and his boyfriend was 30. Keep up with me, guys. The age is important. My mom didn't want to see my dad or his boyfriend, so this was our routine. My mom would pick us up after school, and sometimes my dad would pick us up. But on this particular Friday, my brother wanted to stay at my dad's, but I wanted to be at my mom's. So my brother left with my dad, and I left with my mom. My mom had late shifts for the weekend, so she ended up dropping me off at my dad's. When I walked inside, I heard moaning, but not from 2 voices. It was 3 voices. I immediately knew something was up. I walked upstairs to see my dad, his boyfriend, and my brother doing the nasty. Like for part 2. Story time on how my dad had a threesome with my brother and another man. Like I said, I walked in and my dad, his boyfriend, and my brother was doing the nasty. My dad was actively sticking his inside of his boyfriend's and my brother was sitting in between the mix. Traumatized isn't the word. They all jumped up, but I ran outside and immediately called my mom. My mom came back so angry, she started throwing a whole bunch of books at my dad. But I just held her back and we all left. My dad ended up getting married to this guy and they adopted a child. My mom got full custody of me and my brother, and my dad isn't allowed to see us anymore. My brother is going to therapy and said that it was forced and that he didn't want to. Do I miss my dad? No. Good riddance. Story time on how I sent my nudes to my dad. I'm talking full, clear, tunnel vision to my cat child. Just know this story ends with me getting my behind beat. So I was 17 at the time, and I had a boyfriend who was also 17, and we've been together for 1 year. We were in the same grade, but we always had different classes, so I usually seen him during lunch. My parents were super strict and religious, so we had to keep our relationship on the low. So my boyfriend always asked me to send him nudes, but I never had the guts to send it to him. One day over the phone, me and my boyfriend had a heart-to-heart, and he told me that he would never break my trust and that I can trust him with everything. So I decided I was going to surprise him for his birthday and send him the you-know. The night before his birthday, I decided I was going to send him the nudes exactly at 12 a.m. Biggest mistake ever. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I sent my nudes to my dad. Like I said, I decided to surprise my boyfriend with the you-know for his birthday. When the clock struck midnight was when exactly I was going to send the pictures and wish him a happy birthday. On my phone, my boyfriend name was David with a red heart emoji, and my dad was under dad with the 2 pink heart emojis. 2 very different contacts, but at the same time, way too close. I took the pictures with nothing on. I'm talking full birthday suit. I bent down in front of that mirror, legs wide open, and one in a bed with my selfie stick. I was literally so anxious that I didn't even realize what happened. When I went to go text my boyfriend, my dad texted me. I thought I just swiped up the message to get it out my way, but instead I hit the message. So once I hit the message, it switched me from texting my boyfriend to texting my dad. If you have an iPhone, you know exactly what I mean. But anyways, I didn't realize that I was texting my dad, so I went and sent the nudes. Once I found out, I literally wanted to die. Like for part 3. Part Part 3 on how I sent my nudes to my dad. Like I said, I hit my dad's message by mistake and ended up sending the pictures to him. I still didn't realize I texted my dad, so I just threw my phone on the bed, anxiously waiting for my boyfriend's reply. 2.5 seconds later, my dad barges into the house and is literally screaming at the top of his lungs. I was actually confused until my dad said, "Why would you disrespect your body like that?" Once I realized everything, it was already too late. I got the beating of my lifetime and my phone was taken away, but only for like a week because of safety purposes. When I went to school, I explained everything to my boyfriend and he was so shocked. He did say he appreciated even the attempt. I eventually took nudes directly on my boyfriend's phone, and we're still currently together. But for the rest of my school year, I had to deal with even more strict parents. Watch who you text, guys. Story time on how I went down on my boyfriend and his hot dog smelled like hot trash. So I was dating this guy and we were both 17. Neither of us had our V card, so we weren't new to the game. But up until this point, we haven't done the nasty with each other.
Hello, my name is Alice, 18 years old this year. I know the story I'm going to tell later sounds crazy, but it is completely true. And that's really what I went through. A very scary, but also a very special experience. Maybe I will never forget that in my whole life. It all happened about 2 months ago. It was a boring weekend. I had to stay home alone as my parents had been traveling for the past few days to celebrate their 18th anniversary. In the midst of boredom, I decided to amuse myself by having a party at home and